Sometimes, even before a video game even comes out, you can look at all the press coverage, any and all controversies, and if you're going to review it, you look at it and think to yourself, there's going to be a lot to cover here. A new year means a new Pokemon game in the core series. And this one is gonna be a divisive one, and all because of Dexit. Freaking Dexit. It's really not that big of a deal.
They really need to stop with making a new Pokemon game every year. Ever since the Heart Gold Soul Silver games, which were the remakes of the Gen 2 games, we've been getting a Pokemon every year, and that was in 2010, or 2009 in Japan. The only hiccup in that was the 2 or 3 years between Gen 6 and 7. We didn't need Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Granted, the story was better, but we didn't need it. And we definitely didn't need Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. They could have just given us Sun and Moon, then gone on to Sword and Shield, and given it more development time. If they did that, they more than likely would have avoided the whole Dexit ordeal. And no, we're not going to get a Diamond and Pearl remake. If we're getting a remake, it'll probably be the Gen 2 games again, because Game Freak seems to avoid Gen 4 games like the plague. Anyway, the game looks pretty good. The in-game models look like the ones from the 3DS that were used for the battle screens only. Not the Gen 6 cutscenes or overworld screens, just specifically the battle screens. And I think someone from Cerebi or Smogon, I don't know which one, actually compared the returning Pokemon from Sun and Moon, and they said that they had the same polygon count and the vertices were even in the same places. Game Freak claimed that they had to rebuild the models from scratch because of the high quality animations. Oh yeah, look at these high quality animations. I mean, this was so not worth having all 800 returning Pokemon in the game. The Pokemon move so realistically. It's like they motion captured real animals to give every single Pokemon a unique animation for every single move that they can learn. Joking aside, I think what Game Freak said was a PR disaster. I don't think that they meant they had to rebuild the models from scratch, but they probably had to do some rework for returning Pokemon. Maybe redoing the textures and materials so this way they look right in different lighting and weather conditions, because they were using a new engine, and the rumor is that it's the Unreal Engine. When the Pokemon are in the camp or the new wild area, the animations are new and done well for some of the Pokemon. Like Lucario, who'll do the Naruto run. And then there's Pokemon that don't float but have a more humanoid or walk on all fours type of characteristics. They do have their own unique way of running and walking about the campsites and the wild area. And even though Absol isn't in the game, I'll give them a pass because I can see what they did and the end result is nice. So I don't think that the returning Pokemon models were rebuilt from scratch, but there was a lot of tweaking needed to make sure they looked right for what they were going to do, because during Pokemon battles aren't random anymore, as you can see them in the overworld. I'm willing to say that Game Freak misspoke, or it was a mistranslation. I know that people who data mine the Sun and Moon games found that they were running animations for Pokemon as they were going to have the follow Pokemon, but that was dropped, so it might not have been finished. After all, lots of unfinished stuff gets left in the game's code. There's even data in the Sword and Shield games for Pokemon not in the Galar decks. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they just may not have finished stuff. The game also has some of the best music I've heard in any Pokemon game since Generation 1. And to be clear, I'm not a Gen 1er. If you watch my top 10 favorite Pokemon video, you'd see that the only Gen 1 Pokemon there was Kadabra. Gen 3 and 4 were the most represented. And the gym battle music is so cool, and when the crowd starts chanting, it makes it seem so epic and memorable. As for gameplay, it's a Pokemon game. You travel across the land searching far and wide to collect Pokemon and battle other trainers to raise your Pokemon's level in turn-based combat to become the champion of your region. Nothing has changed in that aspect at all. Or if you're like me, you breed competitive Pokemon with perfect IVs and natures to send them through the trading system to clean up all the trash Pokemon. One change to combat is Dynamaxing, where a Pokemon grows gargantuan in size. All of its stats are increased and it uses stronger moves. It's basically a more flashy version of Mega Evolution from Gen 6 combined with Gen 7 Z moves, and it lasts for 3 turns, which I find dumb. They could have just retooled Mega Evolution to work in the same way. And it becomes even more dumb in its concept when you Gigantamax a Pokemon that can, and its form changes. It's dumb in the sense that it's an unneeded redundancy in the Pokemon series. It's a really cool idea for raid battles where you could play with up to 4 other people, but it gets tiring after seeing it in every single gym battle and each battle in the championship at the end of the game. Like Gen 7, there's no HMs. Any HM has been turned into a TM or TR. A TR is like the old school Gen 1 TMs where they can only be used once. But you can reacquire them by purchasing or from participating in raid battles. Ride Pokemon are gone, instead you get the Rotom Bike, which allows you to ride faster for short bursts or to ride on water. You can call a taxi to fly from place to place. There's no pushing things, cutting things, smashing through things, or item finding things. A lot of nonsense has been cut out and the quality of life has been upgraded significantly. You can access your box from anywhere. You no longer have to stop off at a Pokemon Center to use the PC to switch Pokemon out. This makes Pokemon breeding so much easier. There's something called Pokemon Jobs where you can send out Pokemon to do jobs. You get rewarded with an item or money and the Pokemon will gain experience points. The internet options are no longer as intrusive as they were on the 3DS. You can set up a Wonder Trade, or Surprise Trades as known in this game, and not have to put your game on hold while it looks for someone to trade with. You just set things up and it goes and it'll notify you when it's ready. It seems to work quicker if you don't move though. Walking seems to take longer, and if you enter a building, start a conversation, or enter a battle, it puts the search on hold, which is really dumb. It should be fully functional in the background and not pause just because you do something. Camping replaces Pokemon-Ami or Refresh. You can play with your Pokemon using a cat toy thing or throwing a ball. You could talk to the Pokemon, you just can't pet them anymore, which I do miss. But the new cooking of curry is great. It revives and restores the health of your Pokemon, which helps cut down on needing healing items, allowing you to stay outside of cities and towns longer without depleting other resources, like potions or whatever, because you can keep getting cooking ingredients from other players and on the ground in the wild area, and you can visit other people's camps too, which I did do a few times. You can even cook curry with other players and play with their Pokemon. But it doesn't feel as satisfying as Pokemon-Ami or Pokemon Refresh, just cause you can't pet them or clean them or whatever those things were able to do. The gyms have gym challenges that you have to participate in so that you can get to the gym leader. They take the form of little mini games and they're fun and I really enjoy doing them. You fight about 3 trainers per gym battle, and almost all of them are mandatory. Previous entries had gym trainers that could be skipped, but in these gyms it's even harder if not impossible, as they are located at choke points or have a larger field of view. The biggest new feature is the wild area. If you turn the internet options on, it allows you to see other players. Some Pokemon only come out during certain times or under certain weather conditions. However, there are Pokemon that seem to be there all the time no matter what, and I do wish that there was some kind of rotation to change that up. And this is the only part where you can move the camera. If you interact with other players, you can get cooking items, and you can join the raid battles, but you really can't do much other than that. This section of the game really pushes the Switch to its limit. The game runs at a stable 30 frames per second most of the time, except in the wild area when you have the internet options on. This part is really taxing on the system, and you will get frame rate drops and lag due to other players and all the Pokemon on screen. Some people didn't like this area. I think it was mostly people who do Nuzlocke challenges, because you could get into a battle with a Pokemon that is way above the level of any Pokemon that you have. But that's during the early parts of the game. Some people thought that it was bad that it made it so you couldn't catch Pokemon of a specific level, because if you encountered a shiny that was way too high a level, you'd be screwed because you couldn't catch it as you didn't have enough gym badges. I understand. Why not just make it so you couldn't use them at all? Not like they disobey you. I mean, you get blocked from trying to use it. I mean, in the anime, there's times where Pokemon refuse to come out of their Pokeballs. They could have just done the same mechanic. But the wild area does come off as more of an endgame content type of thing. I really liked it as a concept, like the next generation of Pokemon games should be like this. Giving you that ability to go anywhere you want, that if you wanted a certain Pokemon, it felt more like a hunt. I just didn't care for its frame rate performance or its sometimes laggy performance. Like all Pokemon games, you are a trainer gathering 8 gym badges, but there's another story running alongside yours. In this case, it's about an energy crisis in the Galar region. It's implied that they mostly use coal but are trying to figure out a new energy source. It's also implied that global warming is happening, especially with the Galarian Corsola and its evolution Cursula being ghost types. I did find that pretty neat. And what I did like was the new team that appears. Team Yell. They're not evil like previous teams, trying to steal Pokemon or do something bad with Pokemon. Instead, they're just soccer hooligans, being more of a nuisance than anything as they cheer on this girl that you occasionally battle. The new rival character Hop is annoying for about 98% of the game. Like from beginning to the very last 2%, and I'm even including post-game content, because at that point, he does get pretty cool. But you have to battle him so many times, and there's no avoiding it. I actually preferred the other rivals Marnie and Beatty. Marnie is followed by Team Yell as they cheer her on and want her to become the new champion. And she shoos them away every time they show up together because she doesn't want them interfering. Beatty is just the classic asshole rival that the series has been missing for so long. And he was actually really refreshing to have in the game. But Hop is so much of a one-to-one personality copy of Hau from Sun and Moon, and Hau was already annoying because of that. But Hop is in fact worse than Hau because Hop cannot do crap on his own. He gets beat by NPCs off camera each time. He shows up before and after each gym battle, appears in almost every city at the same time, and wants to battle you about 80% of that time. I'm like, dude, go on your own adventure. We're within a few steps of each other. You don't need to see how I'm raising my Pokemon, because you've practically been there the entire time. At least Hau was a competent trainer, and could handle things on his own. Hop is quite possibly the worst aspect of this game, as his character doesn't develop until the post-game. Beatty gets some development, and it works for his character, but Marnie gets almost absolutely none, which feels like wasted potential. Overall, this is a really good Pokemon game, but it doesn't help that Pokemon is also showing its age. I think that Pokemon needs a Breath of the Wild type of treatment, a full revamp of the series. I'd like to see a different battle system, like a real-time type of battle where you still have 4 moves but have to run around the area, avoiding attacks so that it would feel more like the anime. Or maybe borrow from the Mario RPG series where if you hit a button at the right time you do or take less damage. The series is 23 years old. I would like a little more interactivity to battles, something that would add some think on your feet or skill-based type of combat. I'm not asking for Pokken tournament levels of interactivity, although that would be awesome, but something that has me thinking more than, this is weak to that is strong against this item goes to this Pokemon, and so on. And we all know that Nintendo games sort of have a cheat sheet that they go by. There's one for the top-down and 3D Zelda games. The side-scrolling and 3D Mario games have one as well. Breath of the Wild really changed the Zelda formula for the better, and I think it's time that Game Freak does the same for Pokemon.
This is probably one of the best Pokemon games out there. Although I really can't say that because I never played any game from Generation 2 and never finished Generation 3. But with these quality of life improvements, it's definitely a major step in the right direction. However, because this game series is showing its age, it desperately needs a major overhaul.